What would you feel if you stepped into a magnificent palace, where every wall, every room hid secrets and fears no one dared to speak of? In the Ottoman Harem, where sultanas' concubines and young maidens lived, everything was controlled by absolute power, from life, honor, to personal freedom. One mistake, one careless word, or one wrong glance could change their fate forever. Walking down the long corridors with dim light, you would see young girls, sometimes not even 10 years old, standing in line, trembling under the watchful eyes of the officials. They were not only concubines or maidens, they were pawns in a game of power, where every choice and decision of the sultan or the queen could change a life. Stories of pain, sacrifice, and even death were hidden behind walls lined with red carpets and gold. Yet their influence on Ottoman history was undeniable. Women in the harem had no control over their lives. They underwent harsh trials, had to please the sultan, learn how to gain favor and influence in the court, or even participate in ruthless schemes to survive. All actions were closely monitored, and every mistake could bring tragedy. Viewers can feel the intense tension and shiver-inducing horror imagining themselves as one of these girls, forced to obey strict rules, living in fear, and fighting to survive. The dark secrets of the Ottoman harem are not only stories of personal suffering and power, but they also shaped the fate of an empire, influencing politics, court affairs, and international relations. You may wonder, could they survive these harsh trials? Who would stand out, who would be forgotten, and who would pay the ultimate price with their life? These questions draw viewers deeper into the dark secrets, intrigues, and suffering of the Ottoman harem. The Ottoman harem was not merely a residence for the sultan and his queen. It was an enclosed, opulent, yet ruthless world, where every gesture, glance, and word could determine a young girl's fate. In rooms adorned with gold and lined with crimson carpets, concubines, maidens, and young princesses were trained to please the sultan, while simultaneously navigating a merciless hierarchy to survive and gain influence. The main character is a young girl, around 12 to 14 years old, newly entering the harem. She had never known freedom, and now she must adapt, survive, and employ her intelligence to endure the strict system. Each misstep, a wrong look, a careless word could make her a target of jealousy, schemes, or punishment. She quickly realizes that survival in the harem required not just beauty or sultan's favor, but also strategy, wit, and the ability to navigate political intrigue. Beside her stood the chief queen, the ultimate authority within the harem. The chief queen managed and coordinated all the concubines and attendants, while also being a master of political strategy, manipulating relationships to consolidate her own power and influence the court. The young girl soon understood that survival depended not only on gaining the sultan's favor but also on avoiding the hostile gaze of the chief queen and senior concubines. The harem also included trusted attendants, overseers, and officials, serving both as mentors and monitors. They were the eyes and ears of the sultan and queen, scrutinizing every action to find faults. The young girl had to avoid mistakes, evade suspicion, and navigate subtle schemes to remain alive. Each concubine represented a piece in the power struggle within the harem, where intelligence, observation, and adaptability often determined one's fate. The historical setting is the 16th–17th century, during the height of Ottoman power, yet rife with political intrigue and internal competition. Concubines and attendants were not just individuals, they were strategic instruments in political alliances, marriages, and court schemes. Decisions by the sultan or chief queen affected personal destinies, political authority, and the stability of the empire. The young girl observed the gilded walls and lavish carpets, realizing that beneath the luxury lay a battlefield of power, subtle competition, and hidden threats. Senior concubines, having survived years in the harem, were masters of strategy. They knew how to influence the sultan, evade punishment, and eliminate rivals. The main character needed to observe, calculate, and discern when to act and when to remain silent to survive. Relationships in the harem were never simple. A favored concubine could quickly become a target of jealousy and manipulation, while others would maneuver for power, influence, and higher status. These intrigues shaped the political landscape and affected not only individual lives but also the fate of the Ottoman Empire. The story guides viewers through moments of survival, mental strategy, and power games, showing how the main character had to learn to adapt, avoid danger, and seize opportunities, audiences experience a world that is both luxurious and cruel, where every action carries far-reaching consequences, and where power is determined by cunning and survival skills, not just favor from the Sultan. Upon entering the hidden chambers of the Ottoman harem, the young girl realized that luxury was inseparable from danger, and the harem was a battlefield of survival and political strategy. Every concubine, maid, and young princess was a pawn in a sophisticated game of power, where life and death hung in the balance. One misstep, a careless glance, or a wrong word could end her chances of survival or even threaten her life. On her very first day, she faced a rigorous test of etiquette and poise. Every gesture, how she bowed, walked, or spoke was meticulously observed. The supervising senior attendant noted every small detail that could be deemed improper. The young girl quickly understood that survival depended not on beauty alone, but also on intelligence, adaptability, and careful calculation. Senior concubines, having spent years in the harem, were veteran strategists. They knew how to gain the Sultan's favor, evade punishment, and form alliances to protect their positions. The young girl needed to observe, predict others' moves, and find opportunities to rise without drawing suspicion, navigating a delicate balance between obedience and cunning. Every trial was harsh and relentless, and every error could be exploited to remove her from favor or worse. A critical test involved endurance and mastery of court protocol. She was required to participate in long sessions where attendants and officials assessed her ability to handle pressure, demonstrate skill, and navigate court interactions. A misstep in bowing, an improper glance, or an incorrect response could result in punishment or loss of position. She quickly learned that adaptation and tactical thinking were essential for survival. Tensions in the harem were not limited to behavioral tests. Intrigues and rivalries ran deep. Other concubines attempted to mislead, manipulate, or sabotage newcomers to gain advantage. The main character had to analyze every scenario, anticipate moves, and act decisively, or she would become a target of these ruthless plots. Meanwhile, the chief queen observed all activities closely, evaluating loyalty and influence. She used favor and punishment as instruments to manipulate concubines, making the environment even harsher. The main character realized that success required both the Sultan's favor and the ability to navigate the chief queen's scrutiny, balancing obedience, ambition, and discretion. Throughout this process, the girl faced extreme psychological pressure. She had to comply with complex rituals, endure constant surveillance, and decide when to remain invisible or assert herself strategically. Viewers witnessed the escalating tension from her first steps in the harem, through early challenges to confrontations with internal rivalries and political scheming. Each moment carried the risk of severe consequences, including social elimination or physical danger. The climax arises when the young girl must respond to a decisive challenge, where her intelligence, strategic thinking, and ability to predict rival moves determine her survival position and influence in the harem. Audiences clearly see the contrast between the opulent exterior and the inner cruelty, political pressure, and emotional strain experienced by each girl. The trials and intrigues shape not only personal survival but also the course of court politics. The harsh trials faced by the concubines and maidens of the Ottoman harem were not merely personal struggles, they reflected the political and social mechanisms of the entire court. Every ritual, test, and challenge determined not only an individual's status but also affected alliances, sultan's favor, and the stability of the empire. A young girl who failed a test or fell victim to a rival's scheming did not only lose her personal position, her family connections, political alliances, and sometimes even her life could be jeopardized. The sultan's favor was the ultimate form of power. A single misstep could result in loss of privilege, exile, or punishment, showing that survival depended on intelligence and strategic thinking as much as beauty and charm. Consequences of these trials extended beyond individuals. The Ottoman harem functioned as a microcosm of the empire, where the alliances and rivalries among women mirrored the political dynamics of the court. Conflicts within the harem often influenced marital alliances, succession decisions, and policy directions, demonstrating that personal struggles in the inner court could have far-reaching effects on the empire's history. The psychological strain on the girls was immense. Constant surveillance, social competition, and high-stakes testing shaped their personalities, intelligence, and strategic thinking. Many concubines who survived these conditions became powerful political actors, capable of influencing sultans and shaping court politics. This proves that the harem, while luxurious on the outside, was a testing ground for power and survival, where mental acuity was essential. Audiences can see that these tragic personal experiences were also historically consequential. The intrigues and rivalries that played out in secret chambers determined succession, political decisions, and diplomatic alliances. Actions taken in the harem had a lasting impact on the empire, often more than any single battlefield victory. Finally, the harem demonstrates a rigorous yet effective system of power management. Every decision, every interaction, could carry profound consequences. The personal tragedies, mental strain, and political maneuvering created figures of immense influence. And the historical legacy of the Ottoman harem continues to fascinate because of these complex layers of power, survival, and ambition. The Ottoman harem was not only a place of trials for young girls, but also a repository of hidden plots, schemes, and tragedies. One famous example is Roxolana Harem Sultan, who entered the harem as a young captive and rose to become the sultan's favored consort. Roxolana did not merely earn the sultan's favor, she became a major political influencer, skillfully navigating rivalries, forming alliances, and even eliminating threats to her power. Her story shows that the harem was a strategic battlefield, where survival sometimes mattered more than beauty. Another example is Safi Sultan, the mother of Sultan Mehmed III. Safi faced multiple intrigues and betrayals from younger concubines, but her intelligence and political acumen allowed her to maintain supreme influence, shaping decisions at the court. Young concubines observed and learned from her example, trying to balance submission and cunning. Though not all survived the years of harsh competition, these stories illustrate the strict rules of survival and power in the harem, where strategy was often more important than appearance. Even ordinary maidservants and attendants faced intense challenges. They had to adapt to brutal discipline, serve without raising suspicion, and often monitor and report secrets to the chief queen or officials. A single mistake could result in harsh punishment or expulsion, showing that even minor actions carried life or death consequences. A further example involves the concubines of Sultan Ahmed I, where young girls competed for the sultan's favor. One was removed from favor for a minor misstep, while another, more skilled in court strategy, rose to a powerful position. This stark contrast demonstrates the harem as a ruthless arena, where intelligence, foresight, and subtle maneuvering determined survival and influence. These side stories reveal that the Ottoman harem was a world of simultaneous luxury, tragedy, and power, where each action carried far-reaching implications. The women who mastered strategy and alliances could shape political outcomes and determine the fate of the empire. Even those who appeared insignificant could influence sultans and the court through careful observation, manipulation, and cunning. Through these supporting examples, viewers see that the harem was not just the backdrop of intrigue, was a microcosm of Ottoman political life, where personal struggle, rivalry, and survival could reshape the destiny of the empire. Every triumph and every failure had historical significance, reinforcing the idea that the harem was a place where power, cunning, and strategy defined the fate of nations. Life in the Ottoman harem was a fusion of luxury and cruelty, where power, intrigue, and survival were inseparable. Young concubines, attendants, and sultanas faced relentless psychological and physical trials to secure their positions in a closed system of authority. They had to observe carefully, calculate every move, and engage in political strategy daily to protect themselves, their families, and sometimes even the fate of the court. The stories of Roxolana, Safi Sultan, and the countless concubines and attendants demonstrate that survival in the harem depended not only on beauty or sultan's favor, but also on intelligence, cunning, and strategic thinking. A single right move could elevate a concubine to supreme power, while one misstep could strip her of status or even threaten her life. The consequences extended far beyond individual lives. The intrigues and rivalries within the harem shaped succession, political decisions, and international diplomacy, leaving a lasting impact on the Ottoman Empire. Personal tragedies became historical turning points, showing that private battles in the harem had public repercussions, influencing the course of the nation. This section emphasizes that the Ottoman harem was a rigorous, effective system of power, where every interaction had profound consequences. The personal sacrifices, strategic maneuvering, and mental resilience of its inhabitants created figures of extraordinary influence, leaving behind a historical legacy that continues to fascinate for its complex interplay of power, survival, and ambition. The viewers are reminded that power always comes with sacrifice and challenges. The stories of intrigue, competition, and peril demonstrate that a woman's survival and influence could shape the destiny of an empire. The Ottoman harem's secrets resonate today, showing the harsh realities and hidden strengths behind historical luxury.